What the heck is title and a title company?
Okay, so it's always a little difficult to fully explain title insurance because you can explain it, and I feel like people still kind of never get it fully. I mean, Mainly the goal is to give free and clear title to that buyer, or we're also insuring a lender if we're doing a lender's policy. But we want to verify legal ownership. We want to verify that there's no liens, that there's no defects like clouds on title.
Welcome back to the Mortgage Lounge. I am loan officer Mike Grambow with JMJ Financial, and today we have Rod Grishaber from Calabest Title. Rod is a title rep who's been in the business for 30 years. 20 of those years he spent as a title officer, not just a rep, so he's a wealth of knowledge, and happy to have him here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, Rod, tell us something not title related about yourself.
Married, 3 adult kids, super close with my kids. We do tons together, watch sports, take my daughter to the gym. Got 2 Dobermans that take a lot of time on my life too. But, basically I'm a homebody. I stay at home a lot. We love to vacation, go places as a family. Love to hang out with the family and just do, whatever's going to happen, whether it's watching sports or, going out to eat. We're pretty mellow family.
You're a big basketball guy, right?
Big Laker fan, UCLA fan too, but yeah, huge Laker fan. Playoff time right now, so.
Have you watched the show on Netflix about Jeannie Buss?
No, I seen the other one that they made on HBO, Showtime, but I haven't seen that one. Sometimes I tend to stay away from the ones that I think are gonna do the full like negative portrayals, just because I just kind of don't feel like hearing that.
Okay.
But no, I'm a huge Laker fan. Been watching them since the Magic days. My son is as well, so we watch all the games together too. So we put on our jerseys when we're watching the game sometimes. So yeah, I love having that experience with my son too. So it's pretty amazing.
Nice. You'll have to check it out.
Okay.
Maybe for one of the brothers, and I don't know the full story on the Buss family, but one of
They're
the
a
brothers,
mess.
maybe they don't show in the greatest light, but everybody else, like Jeannie Buss, I think it's entertaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
The brothers were a mess. I mean,
So maybe it is. Yeah.
Jeannie kind of held it all together for the most part, and then she's still a part, but now they've sold. So it's going to be super interesting to see what the future for them is now, where they have the Dodgers ownership took over, and you've seen what they've done for the Dodgers. So I'm just like, okay, you better do that for my Lakers too.
Yeah.
So let's see. And then we're building around Luka, hopefully building around Austin Reeves as well. LeBron, this probably will be his last year.
Yeah.
Should be his last year. So yeah, the future's bright, but it's also interesting just to kind of see like how they will build around them. Luka, AR, not too much defense, so you kind of have to put defensive pieces around them. But no, super excited. Playoffs, we're 2-0 right now, which I didn't expect with Luka being hurt, AR being hurt. So, but who knows? They play tonight, so we'll see.
Yeah. It looks like LeBron's already transitioning to his golf career. But
Yeah, I've seen that.
so what the heck is title and a title company?
Okay, so it's always a little difficult to fully explain title insurance because you can explain it, and I feel like people still kind of never get it fully. Mainly the goal is to give free and clear title to that buyer, or we're also insuring a lender if we're doing a lender's policy. But we want to verify legal ownership. We want to verify that there's no liens, that there's no defects like clouds on title. So that's in a nutshell what it is, but I think the simplest way to kind of explain it is compare it to other types of insurance. So you got home insurance, let's say medical insurance, car insurance, life insurance. On those types of insurance plans, you're basically paying a premium up front, and then you're also paying, let's say a monthly payment or a yearly payment, whatever it is, but you're covering from the time you started into the future. Whereas title insurance, it's a one-time payment, it's at the time of closing. And the difference is it's basically insuring you from the time you close and anything into the past. So that way, if you're a buyer, you don't generally have somebody coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, or if they do come out of the woodwork saying, hey, I got a lien on your property, or, I was a prior owner on this property and I never signed off and I'm going to sue you. Well, now if you have that title insurance policy, you're covered. You're basically going to call that title company, reach out to the claim department and say, hey, so and so's contacting me saying they, have a lien or they have ownership rights. Here's my policy. You guys insured me. You handle it. So that's basically what we're here for. And that's why it's so important.
And would you describe a lien as a debt that somebody attaches to your property? So like a mortgage is a lien, but it also
Right.
could have been the contractor that did the roof, and maybe they thought that you didn't pay them what they were due, so they
Yeah.
put a lien called a mechanic's lien,
Right. Yep.
right? But there's all sorts of different types of liens, and the lien is essentially them claiming an ownership of the property if the debt isn't paid.
Right. So that's why your lenders want their lender's policy, because they want to know that if for some reason someone was going to foreclose on the property, that they're getting paid first. So they want that lien position. Everyone wants to be in first position. But like you said, yeah, there's tons of different types of liens, from the actual mortgage loan on the property, like you mentioned, mechanics lien. So if a contractor does work and they feel they weren't paid properly, they can slap a mechanics lien. That'll stop any title company from closing if there's a new mechanics lien recorded on the property. You got federal tax liens, state tax liens, judgment support liens, lis pendants, litigation liens. Like those ones, I'd say like if you see a lis pendants and a mechanics lien too, but those are more so red flags. Those attach to the actual property, not just to the owner's name. So you'll see a lis pendants and you know that there's some sort of litigation going on, where usually it's somebody that's suing for ownership rights to the property. So, maybe the family, the parents passed away, their property was in the trust, and maybe the kids aren't happy with what's going to happen, and someone's slapping a lis pendants to stop it from happening because they think they're going to get cut out, or whatever the reason is. It can be multitude of different reasons, but lis pendants, litigation lien, mechanics liens, those are two big ones, two sort of red flags that do come up, that if I see those on a prelim that I'm reviewing for one of my clients, I'm definitely pointing those out right away.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times too, when it comes to liens, is you might get a preliminary title report, right? Which is the report of the property prior to closing, that shows everything that, all the documents that run with the land, exceptions, which are liens. Some of them need to be, if they're liens, they need to be cleared. So paid off, released, or whatnot. And some of them will, if they're 10 years, if they're older than 10 years, they can expire. And so also the way that a title company, when we drop a prelim, is that owner's name could be a super common name. It could be Tom Smith in LA County, huge county. So there's probably thousands of liens out there against, a Tom Smith in LA County. And so we might not show any liens on the prelim, but that doesn't mean that there are no liens against Tom Smith. It means that, hey, once we get into escrow is going to ask for that statement of information, and they're going to put all their information so we can cross-examine the liens to make sure. But then on the flip side of that, you might also get a prelim that has maybe 3 or 4 liens, and your client's telling you, hey, those aren't mine. That's not me. I don't know what those are. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're your party either. We just don't have that SI to knock them out, but the names matched. So we did put them on. So it's just I always tell my clients, look, if you get a prelim and you see liens, don't get too scared, because they might not be our party. But then also, if you get a prelim and there's no liens, it's not 100% yet that we've cleared it. We still need that statement of information to go ahead and do our due diligence.
Yeah, clearing the lien, I think, is the important part, right? So title can be viewed from both a buyer's perspective and a seller's perspective, right? So if you're a buyer, what's just some of the things that you can expect in the process from the title company?
Yeah, so if you're a buyer, you really don't need to worry too much. And the reason I say that is, as long as we get to the closing date and we close, you're insured by a title company. There's not a title company that's going to close if we can't give free and clear title to that buyer. So like I said, at the time that we close, they're getting a policy that's free and clear. So they really don't need to worry about it. If for whatever reason, they see the prelim and there's multiple liens, they might get nervous that it's going to take too long to clear them. But as long as the seller is, not fighting all these liens, we're not going to close without clearing them. So it could stretch out escrow a long time till, we finally get all these liens from all the creditors and the seller agrees and we're going to pay them all through escrow. But, from a buyer's standpoint, they need title insurance. And the best part for them is traditionally, at least, in California, the seller's the one that's paying for that owner's policy anyway. So there's really no reason for the buyer to say, hey, I don't want a title policy. We don't need title insurance, because the seller's paying for that anyways. Now, if they're getting a loan, to purchase that property, they do pay for their lender's policy, which again protects the lender. But if I'm a buyer, you want title insurance because that's your safety blanket once you close, and you're going to hold on to that. And even if you lose it, you can just call the company and they'll send you another one. But as a buyer, you wouldn't want to deny it. And sometimes people do. I'd say the only time I see people denying it is when it's a family member maybe selling to another family member, and either they have trust or neither of them, want to pay the fees and they just think we don't need it. They can deny it if they want, but I wouldn't advise it.
Yeah. So ownership is when you're filing a grant deed on the property, right? So you can do that, and that deed isn't necessarily insured. That's where the title company comes in to say, no, this is an insured deed, so somebody can't come in and supersede it, whether it's previous owner or really otherwise, right?
So uninsured deeds are a big issue that do come up often. Especially you see family members deeding back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for whatever the reasons are that, someone came on the title, then they went back, came off of title, and they went back on title, and they added people and they did all this, but it wasn't through a title and escrow transaction. So we'll always consider those an uninsured deed. And so if we see a bunch of those have happened and now we're about to insure a buyer free and clear title, we're going to actually ask for all those parties that deeded off for an uninsured deed affidavit, so that we can get them to sign again, that we know that those were legit transfers. They weren't coerced in any way. They knew what they were doing. And so you'll see that a lot. That one does come up fairly often.
Real estate transactions are expensive. There's lots of fees around all of it. And to me, getting title insurance is usually 1% or less of what the price of the home is, 0.1%, right, of what the price of the home is. So it just makes sense to secure your ownership rather than buy this amazing asset and have it susceptible to somebody else coming in and trying to take it from you, right? Talking, if you're the buyer and you hear, oh no, there's all these liens on the property, right? Tell me if my perspective is wrong, but to me, as long as all of them get cleared and being paid off or removed one way or another, as you say, you have a clear title slate and you own the home, so it's fine. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, exactly. As long as you're getting a title policy from a reputable title company, like I said, we're not going to close without cleaning all that up. So whether we're gonna ask for a payoff demand from each of those creditors, whoever holds those liens, and a release, a reconveyance of whatever those are as well. So sometimes we get the actual release to record, or sometimes their payoff demand will state, upon payment, they will go ahead and go forward and issue the release. But again, that's the whole main purpose of title insurance is, to confirm ownership and to give free and clear title, free of defects like clouds on title or liens against, prior owners.
Yeah. So to give some examples I've run into recently, there was a file, like literally the day of closing, they go, oh no, there's a child support lien on the property from the seller, right? And I just told the buyers, depending on how quickly they can get the payoff demand, this is or isn't a big deal. It got cleared same day, right? So for people listening, essentially there's a lien. They were able to go find out how much was due, and it was paid through closing, and we were able to close, right? So my people got a clean slate there. One that was a little bit more drama, and I think it was mainly just a misunderstanding, was the seller had an IRS lien. And the buyer just got freaked out from the words lien and IRS. But at the same time, to me, they're identical situations. There's a lien that needs to get paid off. You get the payoff from the IRS. It gets paid. And now you own the home, right? Yep. Would you agree?
Yeah, so it's the same situation. Just as a child support, we're going to handle it the same, where escrow is going to reach out and order a payoff demand and a release. The problem with the IRS liens is, one, they take a lot longer usually to come back.
That one did.
Yeah. And every lien is a little bit different as to the time frame in which you'll get that payoff demand back. And it doesn't really seem like they're doing anything to rush that for you. So we might have, let's say, an IRS lien pops up at the end. So basically, the way it is for title is we're originally going to run the people's names at the very beginning, and then if someone asks for an updated prelim as we're going through the transaction, we'll run them again. Once we get the statement of information, we'll run them again, and then at the last day, the day that we're closing, we'll also run their names again, right? So we're always checking to see if anything's popped up, but especially on the day of closing, we have to run it one last time. And sometimes, the seller might know they have a lien and they might be like, oh man, they didn't pick up on it or nothing's happening. So they're not going to ruffle any feathers and bring it up. But then on the day of closing, it does pop up. And so now we have to handle it, and everybody's panicking. They want to close on time. What do we do? What do we do? Then I get a lot of, escrow will say, hey, well, can you hold money, still close, but just hold money? And then that's when with title, we have to make that decision. Okay, are we willing to hold? And if so, how much? Because like on an IRS lien, a federal tax lien, those ones over any other lien, whatever the face value you see on that lien, usually when the actual payoff comes, it's a lot higher. So it's a little bit harder to determine. So sometimes we have to hold double, maybe 3 times. It just depends of the amount. And then, they might have to sign an indemnity agreement where, within 30, 60, 90 days, whatever the agreement's for, if we don't have this settled, then we're going to pay upon that last payoff demand that we have. So sometimes people want to negotiate it and try to get it lowered. And, we'd have to grant that to them. If we're going to hold money and close, and then we'd have to give them a timeline of maybe, 30 or 60 days to when, okay, we're going to give you this much time, but we're going to pay it on this date if we don't have, a new demand. So
What, yeah, I was thinking of another scenario. We worked together where the county had a lien because of that tree that needed to be taken down, but they hadn't removed the tree. And I think in all these, like you're saying, the time that it takes just to get the payoff, because working with that county took forever.
Well, those
to
ones
get
are
that
different
straightened
too,
out, right?
because, if it's like a notice of substandard lien or a code violation, or any type of city or county lien, the way those ones are different, because not only are they going to have maybe a fee associated with it, but they also have to go and inspect it, make sure that whatever they need fixed or removed is done, sign off on it. So those ones are a little trickier.
Yeah. So once again, if you're a buyer, there's lots of different types of liens. Some of them take longer and have more hoops to clear, but they all, most of the time, you're going to have a solution to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, as long as the seller wants to sell and it's not going to stop the sale because they're not agreeing with what they have to pay on these liens,
Right.
then they're fine. But, the buyer's not going to lose out on anything.
Yeah.
And once they close, they should have that peace of mind because they got title insurance, that anything, no matter how ugly that prelim was when they first saw it, no matter how many liens they noticed, those are all gone once they get that free and clear title policy. And that's what title insurance is for.
I don't go too far into the weeds on this scenario, but that file where it was the closing day and they're like, oh, surprise, there's this lien. My initial reaction was, what has the title insurance company been doing for the last 30 days, right? So it's good to hear that there's a check at the end. Is it just that it's a different type of check, or like, is there a reason that it would come up the last day and not the first day?
No, I can explain that. So basically, again, when we first shoot out the prelim and we research it, we're going to run the property. So whatever's on the chain of title at that date, that's what's going to be on the report. Now, and I always tell my clients, you should always ask for an updated prelim, maybe, a week before you're about to close, because we don't necessarily keep checking on your report like every week and rerunning it. No one would have the manpower and the hours to do all that with all the files that we deal with. But if someone asks us for an updated prelim, we can rerun it. So what happens sometimes is 2 things. One is we're going to run it at the beginning, and then we might not run it again until the day we're closing, right? Besides the statement of information. But like that type of lien that you're talking about, a city or a county lien, those get recorded against the property, not so much against the owner's name. And so if that does record like a week before closing and no one's asked for an updated prelim or whatnot, we're not going to know about it until we do rerun it on the day of closing. And so it's really not title's fault because we can't control when these liens get recorded. It just so happened
was
that
bad
it
timing.
recorded that way.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, let's just say like a regular, like a support judgment or a judgment lien, tax lien, whatever type of lien. Sometimes those tend to quote unquote pop up at the end as well. But the issue with that is, when did we get the statement of information back? So if the seller's taking forever to give the statement of information to escrow, and then escrow maybe doesn't send it to us right away, or whenever they send it to us, like if we don't get the documents and the statement of information until the day we're closing, then that's the next time we're running it. And so then people will say, oh no, a lien popped up, title, and then everyone thinks it's title's fault, but we didn't get the information until the day we're closing. And so it makes it hard. So I always say, look, get us a statement of information right away. I even tell my listing agents, as soon as you secure the listing, even if you're not in escrow yet, have them fill out a statement of information ahead of time. That way we can run them early on before, because once you're in escrow, the clock's ticking, whether it's a 30-day escrow or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you get that to me prior to, and we do find something, that gives us so much more time to get that handled. And then again, like I said, an updated prelim a week before closing will really help, because that'll give you a full week to get that all handled, which should be enough time as well. So,
So when you're buying a property, a lot of this is on the seller's side, and the title company's working on your behalf to get it all done. From the seller's perspective, I'd love to hear just the importance of working with a reputable source, how they work in tandem, and like in these cases where maybe something is coming down the pipeline and now is going to show on your report the day of closing, if that's something that you'd like to know about ahead of time, or if it is better to just go through the process.
So we on the title side don't necessarily connect one-on-one with the sellers too much. Every once in a while we do, but escrow is the one that's going to work directly with them. And then, escrow is the third party in the middle that gets us back and forth all the information. But yes, again, when I talk to my agents, if they know of anything that could come up, because sometimes the sellers will tell you everything, which is great. The property's in a trust, maybe the original trustees passed away, or maybe, someone is not of sound mind and we have to deal with, okay, let's review the trust. Let's see, what's required to confirm that the incapacitation of a seller. It could be, okay, we have a lien, we're making payments on a lien. How is that going to affect? They could have so many different things, but if they don't tell us till the end, it's tough, because that's when all the pressure comes and everyone's nervous about not closing. But had we known about all this up front, it would be a whole lot easier for sure. So I always try to explain to all my clients, like, get me the statement of information. Let me know if I see the properties in the trust. I'll ask them, is anyone deceased? Is anyone, not of sound mind? Are we dealing with the successor trustees, the kids? Who's telling you they're the seller? One of the kids. Okay, which one? Get us a full copy of the trust right away, and I'll review it myself and confirm who that successor trustee is, to make sure you're dealing with the right person that actually has the authority to sign on behalf. So there are lots of things you can do up front, even before and getting into escrow, that, will make the closing process a whole lot smoother.
Yeah. And in Southern California, title and escrow are typically two separate companies, where other parts of the country, they are just one company. So it could be the similar contact. But
Yeah,
I wanted to
sure.
comment on you were mentioning of that. So that's buyer and seller. Anything different or noteworthy from like a real estate agent's perspective about title?
The way I look at it, like in regards to, like, let's just say working with me, where I think from a realtor, so most realtors are used to title reps kind of being a certain way, right? So a lot of title reps are, that they'll help them with whatever it is, farms, with data, going to their open houses, supporting them in somehow, right? Which we can all do that. The thing I think with me that's a little bit different is I also have, a ton of title knowledge. I was a title officer for about 20 years, basically sort of underwriting my own files. for a very long time. So I know all the ins and outs of title. I can guide you through any closing and explain to you, what we need, why, how, any little question. It's very rare that I have to say, hey, that's a good question. Let me call my title officer and get back to you. I can pretty much answer everything firsthand. And so I think from a realtor standpoint, if I wanted to make my team as strong as possible, I would want someone like me that can cover both sides. Like I can do what everybody else can do, but I know that they can't really focus and do what I do on the knowledge part and being able to explain things in details. I have clients that put me on three-way with the sellers to answer all their questions, and I'm happy to do all that. And so, I have at my home office the same thing that my title officer has in their office. And so I can run the whole chain of title and I can review everything. I can pull docs. You can send me trust documentation, entity docs, and I can review it all as well. So I just think that's what sort of sets me apart a little bit. And I think it's very valuable for real estate agents to have someone like that on their side.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective because as a lender, I'm in direct contact with the buyer, the borrower, right? And it's my job to do the explaining. Typically, educating the realtor is like the backup because almost inevitably what happens is the buyer then goes to the realtor and wants to explain again or like
Right.
validation that I'm not making things up, right? Where for you, like you said, usually you're not in direct contact with the seller. Most of the time, their contact is either the escrow company or the real estate agent. So being able to educate and inform them so that they can communicate well, I feel like
Yep.
is really,
Yep.
really
Plus, I
important.
mean, I feel like I also help to make that realtor look good too. So when they have questions, they can get the answers from me, and I try to explain everything to them very simple layman terms, so it's easy for them to explain that to their clients as well. So I think
Hmm.
that's super valuable.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot of different types of liens. The last thing that I was thinking about was in terms of mortgage. I think that there's different mortgages that maybe act in a little bit of a different way. But from my perspective, at the end of the day, they're all some form of a lien, right? So people are always okay with just your traditional 30-year fixed conventional mortgage. But they get weird or concerned, I should say, about like a reverse mortgage. And my response typically is that a reverse mortgage is a lien, just like the forward mortgage. There's some different features about it, but one of them is actually in the benefit of people where it's a non recourse loan. So you can't owe more on a reverse mortgage than what the property's worth. Where on a traditional loan, we saw this during the Great Recession, a lot of people were underwater because they
Right.
owed more on the mortgage than what the home was worth, right? So then they got to work it out with the bank and do a short sale. The other common one are second mortgages, and those are maybe a little bit different because they're second position, but at the end of the day it is just another lien. So if you had a mortgage and then a solar lien or something else, that's going to be similar and a little bit different. If you're a second mortgage, at the end of the day it's debt that you have to pay off. Right?
Correct. Yep.
So I don't know, anything to add about that?
No, I mean, like, we have, traditional loans, like you said, reverse, hard money, private money loans, solar liens pop up. They're all different in a sense, but from a title perspective, they're all pretty much treated the same. So
Mhm.
even like with the reverse mortgage, they get recorded twice, one with the lender, one with HUD, but it's really just one loan. It looks like two, but it's just one. We get one payoff for the two. Hard money is a little bit different. Sometimes we want the original documents back, and then and we want to know that they got a reconveyance for all of them. So we're going to want recons, we're going to want payoffs. On a second, it might be a equity line of credit. And we're going to want a freeze letter. We're going to want to know that that equity line was actually frozen, not just paid to zero. Because what's definitely happened in the past, and that's why title companies will always ask for that freeze letter, is they kind of act like a credit card, the equity line of credits. And so we've had it to where a prior one was, we assumed it was paid off and closed correctly, but the person started charging it back up, and it becomes an issue. So they're all somewhat treated the same in the sense that we need a payoff, we need a release, but then they're all unique too, in how they come up,
Mhm.
especially like solar liens too. With solar liens, you have the regular traditional ones that you see mostly where they'll record what's called a notice of independent solar contract. It's like the lease contract, and then the UCC filing statement, which is sort of like the lien. They'll record those. That's when someone's leasing, the equipment, And then there's also the Hero Pace program ones. And those ones, in my opinion, they're kind of a scam. I think the thing is they go after homeowners and basically tell them like, hey, you can have no payments. We're going to put these solar panels on your property. And nothing's coming out of your pocket, but it's just going to be paid out through your property taxes. But now if you have a Hero Pace lien on your property, no lender is going to lend under it. If you sell the property, you have to pay it off in full. And the problem is, from what I've heard and seen, is that a lot of these seem very overpriced. Whatever these contractors were seems to have charged a very high price, to where now the seller has to pay it off in full to sell the property, and that probably wasn't disclosed to them correctly. So, Hero Pace ones are a little bit of a pain in the butt, but we do see tons of the solar ones. And the one thing that's kind of cool about dealing with the independent solar contract in the UCC is if there's an ongoing lease still, it's not paid off or anything, the buyer can actually assume it. So what we'll do is we'll record a temporary termination at the time of closing, and then about 30 days later they'll record a new lien with the new buyer's name. So
yeah, a ton of information.
Yeah,
I think that we've proven the point of how there's different quality of title companies, how there's a lot of nuance to it, right? And just like if you're purchasing anything, there's a price component and a quality component. And I think that a lot of services in real estate get commoditized, and it's important to know that it's like, no, if you don't pick something of quality, there's lots of issues that can come up because of the nuances, right?
Very true.
So just in final thoughts, anything unique about you and your company that you want to share?
No, just, like I said, been doing this for many years. I love the company I'm at. Everything's been great. I'm at California Best Title. I've been at a few different title companies, but I will say working here has been great. Our underwriting is aggressive. I feel like I'm one that can close deals that maybe a lot of other title companies can't close. And I think it just has to do with I'm willing myself to put in the work to kind of dig into whatever the situation was that the other title company might have had an issue with. And then I can put everything together, present it to my management team, and then we try to see if we can find a way to actually get something closed that might be a little bit difficult. And so I think we're actually pretty good at that. So, our fees are all competitive, like most title companies are. But yeah, no, that's about it.
Nice. And I could attest that there's been some tricky situations that you've helped me navigate and make some exceptions for. So it's always appreciated.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
So, California Best Titles where I work. I'm on Instagram, Title U 101. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook as well. I run a private Facebook group on Facebook. So if you look me up, Rod Grishaber, and look for my Title U private group for realtors, loan officers, I post tons of videos and information on any topic that I think kind of comes up that I think is super valuable to all of you. So
awesome. Well, thank you. Well, thanks for joining us here in the Mortgage Lounge. And until next time, be well.
Thank you.